We have been hearing about the looming eviction crisis for months, and now we just might be on the precipice of watching it all unfold. The national halt in residential evictions that was put into place by the CDC starting September 2020 has come to an end as of July 31st, 2021. And there is no shortage of panic being sold with regard to this story. Many are claiming that mass evictions are now unavoidable, as millions of renters who are behind on their rent are now without the protections of the eviction moratorium. Of course, this will lead to a real estate crisis, as landlords have an abundance of vacancies that will force lower rents and ultimately create a wave of new housing inventory that could cause the housing bubble to burst, which would cause a ripple effect of calamity on the overall economy. It's here. It's our inevitable doom, and it's upon us. So we are going to discuss exactly what's going on and who is at risk of being affected by this. We will also talk about how soon all of this could be unfolding and where we expect problems to develop first. Then we will talk about what this means for you, and if you stick around to the end, I will show you how to get some help if you need it. I'm going to be sharing with you some resources if you're a landlord or tenant who is affected by this that you need to know about. Finally, I will give you my opinion and let you know if I think this is going to be as bad as they say it is, or maybe, just maybe, we've all been whipped into a frenzy with zero merit. So buckle up and start your engines by destroying that like button, and let's get into it.
Subscribe.
During a recent challenge in June to the CDC's eviction moratorium, the Supreme Court refused to lift the ban on evictions. However, the 5-4 victory wasn't a clear win for the CDC. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, who cast the fifth and deciding vote, wrote an opinion stating that he voted to not end the eviction program only because it was set to expire on July 31st anyway. He added that in his view, the CDC should no longer act independently, and any additional extensions to the moratorium would require Congress to pass new law and clear legislation. Well, here we are, and despite a last-ditch effort, Congress has failed to pass any new legislation allowing the moratorium to be extended. They just didn't have enough votes to push anything through the House, much less the Senate, and now they're on an extended break. To be fair, Congress can still put something together to hold off evictions a little while longer. While it seems unlikely, it's still possible. So to state this clearly, the national moratorium has expired on its own, and so far there isn't any new law to extend it beyond July 31st. Many argue that this is terrible news for renters, and that the national eviction moratorium should be extended for a couple of reasons. Firstly, new variants of the illness continue popping up, including the new Delta variant, which some believe is more contagious than previous versions. Allowing millions of tenants who are unable to pay rent due to pandemic-related loss of income to become homeless would not only create undue hardships, but could potentially pose a health risk. Housing displacement is thought to increase the spread of the illness, which could create a vicious cycle as more people become ill, because this would lead to more lockdowns and job losses and ultimately even more evictions. Secondly, there are already over $45 billion of government rental assistance allocated, which is more than enough to pay for any unpaid rent. However, ramping up delivery systems and technology takes time, and states have struggled to give out these funds. Some estimates suggest that as few as 12% of emergency rental assistance has been distributed after 6 months. However, there is evidence to suggest that rental assistance distribution is speeding up. This has many believing that ending the moratorium now and allowing people to be evicted just before funds arrive not only would fail to keep people in their homes, but it's completely an avoidable mistake. So just how bad is the problem? Well, according to the National Equity Atlas, almost 6.4 million households nationally are behind on their rent. This is totaling about $21 billion, which, as you might imagine, the more populated areas such as New York and California are holding the majority of this debt. Imagine for a moment, 6.4 million households being evicted all at once. To put that into perspective, according to Statista, there are only about 43 million rental households in America. So we are talking about uprooting 15% of every rental household in the entire country all at once. Certainly something of that magnitude would have a devastating impact across almost every aspect of not just our housing market, but our entire economy. Before this gets any more scary, I guess we should dive into the details a little bit deeper. The honest truth is, nobody knows exactly what's gonna happen. The most extreme outcome obviously makes the best headlines, but there are several indicators that suggest that this won't be anywhere near the catastrophe that it's being pumped up to be. Firstly, even though the national eviction moratorium is expiring, many states and counties have their own eviction moratoriums still in place. So it won't be possible for all evictions across the country to happen all at the same time. It will be staggered as existing local eviction bans expire. The bulk of these potential evictions are in states that already have their own eviction bans in place. For example, California and New York. That's why I'm saying this will naturally stagger the evictions and prevent them from all happening at once. Some parts of the country can start working through this now, while other parts can wait a little longer before any evictions will start. Next, it's important to understand the numbers. We see that 6.4 million households are behind on rent, but we really don't have anything to compare that to. We don't really know if that's a lot relative to normal times or not. According to the National Multifamily Housing Rent Tracker, we can see 3 years rent payments being made side by side, and it shows that 2021 is really only a couple of points lower than previous years. And these percentages represent rent that is paid by the 6th of the month. If we consider the full month, we can see that almost all rent is paid by the end of the month. That's a good indicator. As far as the potential for 6.4 million households being evicted, it's important to note that according to Princeton University's Eviction Lab, in a typical non-pandemic year, landlords would file 3.7 million evictions anyway. You know, hearing 6 million plus households will be evicted sounds really bad. After all, millions of households sounds like a lot. But we have to put it into context. Firstly, it's highly unlikely that all households who are behind on rent would be evicted. Some will borrow the money, others will take advantage of rental assistance, some will work out a payment plan with their landlord, and some may have had the money all along but simply choose not to pay rent. Either way, even if we suppose that 5 million households will eventually face eviction, that's only a small bit more than the normal 3.7 million who would normally face eviction in a typical year. And this amount, as aforementioned, will be staggered. Now don't get me wrong, any increase in evictions is concerning, but when we put it into context like this, it's a far cry from the doomsday panic that is being proliferated. Next, let's consider that there is enough federal funds allocated to easily assist all renters who are behind on rent due to the pandemic. Honestly, the last thing a landlord wants to do is go through the costly hassle of processing an eviction. It makes far more sense to try and figure it out, or even wait until assistance is available. For this reason, even our lowered estimate of 5 million evictions would be surprising to me. I would expect there to be far less. Furthermore, it takes time for evictions to happen. They can't simply be executed instantly. If many eviction cases are filed all at once, the courts will be backlogged. There will be an organic bottleneck that will stagger the evictions and prevent them from happening all at the same time. This will create a much slower and digestible stream of rental turnover. And consider that during these delays, federal assistance will continue to be coming through, causing some of these eviction cases to simply be dropped. Even if this isn't going to be the eviction apocalypse that some suggest it will be, if you are affected by this, I can understand why this news wouldn't be of any comfort at all. So let's talk about this. What should you do if you're a tenant or landlord in need of rental assistance? One tool is to go to the HUD State Resource website, link below. From there, you can find your state and click on it. And then you can find everything you need to know for renters and homeowners who are affected by the illness. But that's just one resource. There's another tool that is by far the best resource, and that's the National Low Income Housing Coalition Treasury Emergency Rental Assistance Dashboard. Wow, that's a mouthful. That's why some just call it the ERA dashboard. Anyway, link below. This tool breaks down the number of all programs that are available, but more importantly, it provides a list of the exact programs available to you by state. If you go to the site, give the dashboard a minute to load. There's a ton of information, so it won't always load right away. I also found that it didn't work for me in the Firefox browser, if that helps anyone. All right, so let's talk about my thoughts. Is this thing really going to be the worst disaster we've seen in a long time, or is it much to do about nothing? I just want to say, I'm not big on predicting the future. Nobody ever really knows what will happen, and at this point, nothing surprises me. However, given all the information we've covered in this video, I have a feeling that this is going to be nowhere near as drastic as some of these news articles would have you believe. I know it doesn't make for a sexy punchline to come out here and tell you the sky probably isn't falling and the world is most likely not going to be over, but I gotta be honest with you guys. I think we will continue to see some news about this. There will be a few really sad stories about individuals who are deeply affected by this, but for the most part, everything will go on as normal. And those are my thoughts. So if you appreciate this kind of content, let me know by clicking that like button and consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Until next time, you guys are awesome.